How you doing, Kim? I'm very well. We got a scout troop in here. I was never a Boy Scout. Didn't have nothing like that in the middle. I'm an alpha boy. I'm an alpha boy. And, I was the head alpha boy.
Still making stars. Yeah, it's still the starting phase. I've been here.
Actually, it was a pretty good deal for the job. Six on Sundays. Help me behave on Saturday.
A dollar.
How you doing? Good.
Population. Base population.
Garcia, how are you?
Hey, doctor. How you doing? How you doing? Hey, you know, how does it feel?
Oh, yeah.
Good morning. I want to welcome you to the March 18th Board of Supervisors meeting. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Harris.
Here.
Supervisor Lewis.
Present.
Supervisor Miller. Here. Supervisor Valdez. Chair Bronson.
Here.
Let the record show all members are present.
Please rise up for the invocation to be offered by Chaplain Vernon T. Arms, Department of Public Safety, and the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Supervisor Miller.
A word of encouragement from Psalm chapter 90. And that the beauty of the Lord our God be upon us, and establish thou the work of our hands upon us. Yes, the work of our hands establish thou it. Please join me in prayer. Our Father God, in these days of financial, social, and international stress and turmoil, we look to you as this body on the local level seeks to govern for the good of all citizens of Pima County. As there are shortfalls in revenue and increased demands for assistance, give the Board of Supervisors and Administrator Huckleberry wisdom as they wrestle with these increased complex issues. We thank them for being willing to serve in this office where so often they are criticized or the decisions are misunderstood. Guide them in the issues they have to deal with this very day. As your word directs us, we pray for them. We commit to you our national leaders also. Protect our troops and first responders as they serve both you and us. Thank you for our great United States of America and the freedoms and opportunities we enjoy. Please accept our thanks and hear our prayers in the name above all names. Amen.
Please join me in this pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chaplain. Supervisor.
Madam Chair, I just want to thank Chaplain Vernon Harms, who's the official chaplain for Department of Public Safety, for coming up from the Santa Cruz Valley this morning. Thanks so much, Vernon. Appreciate your days spent on the highways as well as in this hearing.
Madam Chair. Supervisor Miller. I'd like to pay personal privilege comment and proceed
Today I have in the audience 5 members of Boy Scout Troop number
Oh, I was just going to
294.
ask what they were doing here. Okay.
And they're working on their citizenship and community merit badge, and one of the requirements is to attend a city, town, or county meeting and to meet with an elected official. And I'm very pleased that they have chosen to meet with me. And I'd like to announce the scout leader and each of their names, and if they would please stand to be identified. The scout leader is Jolie Sechrist. The scouts are Andrew Engel, Carter Engel, Isaac Madrid, Micah Sechrist, and Garen Brandt. Thank you all very much for coming, and I'd like to invite you all up to my office on the 11th floor after the meeting for a Q&A session if you wish. And I thank you so much for attending today. And if you have any questions about the meeting, please jot them down, and we'll be prepared to answer them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I also want to recognize in the audience we have 2 representatives, state representatives, Representative Ethan Orr and Victoria Steele, and I did your names in alphabetical order. And thank you for coming this morning. And let's move on quickly now to pause for cause, and let's meet Ike, Officer Bowman.
Good morning. This is Ike, and Ike has got his eyes on a squeaky toy. He has an attachment to the toys. I just heard a funny story from one of our volunteers that they were in the kennels late at night, and it was all the dogs are quiet and sleeping, and in the background you hear this little squeak every so many minutes. So that's Ike's thing. I brought his toy along so that you'd be well aware if you choose to adopt this dog that he has quite a fondness for squeaky toys. Maybe he'll stop a little.
Not with my stomach.
Maybe Ike would like a different oral fixation.
Dry, like to be late. He was just standing cutely with it in his mouth. Now he's tending to squeak it a little more. Anyways, Ike. Oh yeah, that did it. That's it. Ike is available for adoption. He's been with us for several weeks, so his adoption fee is now waived. It's just the $15 licensing fee. Other dogs right now for the month of March, we're running the $30 special. So $30 for the animals and a $15 licensing fee. So $45 gets them out the door. As you can see, Ike is quite a charming dog. We have dozens and dozens of charming dogs, all special in their own little way. As you can see, though, they all do have their neat little characteristics, and this is just one of them. Ike has been waiting since the middle of February, so he's anxious to get out, and now that the weather is just perfect for running through the park, he'd really like to get out there. So if you know anyone interested in a dog, Ike's available. Many others if this isn't the dog for you. We're open from noon until 7 on weekdays and from 10 to 5 on the weekends. So we're at 4000 North of Silverbell. If you have an interest or a room in your home and heart for an animal, please come on down and see us. All animals are come pre-altered, microchipped, and rabies vaccinations. So it's quite a deal to get a dog in your home. So thank you for your time, and please come down and see Ike.
No. Thank you, Officer Gordon. We have several changes to the agenda. On the consent calendar, page 7, item 3, the contract and award for facilities management is a correction to the address. It should read a lease for 33 North Stone. And on the addendum, page 2, item 12, another correction. This one to the contract term. It's for the YMCA of Southern Arizona. It should read a 25-year term, not a 15-year term. If there are no objections, we'll make those changes.
Madam Chair,
Supervisor
I don't
Elise.
have any objections to the changes, but I was just wondering if Paulo Pereira has a dog.
I have 2.
Oh, okay, then I won't try and send you home with that dog.
What about Gail?
Well, you know, Gail, no way. Well,
There's always Alan.
a Boy Scout dog, yeah, Alan, you know, Alan, you were probably a Boy Scout. It's worth a try.
Okay. We have some executive session items, but we have a number of people. I'm going to move several items up
Yeah,
before
let's
we
do
go to exec. We'll move to item 14 first, and then item 10. Item 14, staff report.
Madam Chair and members of the board, the Pond Advisory Committee, the Pima County Board of Health, and the Animal Care Advisory Committee have all met and recommended that the board consider placing on the ballot in November of 14 an item with regard to the modification, expansion, replacement, repair of the animal care facility located on Silver Bell Road. What you have before you is the materials of that in a resolution that actually calls for that item to be placed on the ballot in November. The estimated total cost of the bond question that will be on will be $22 million. The cost to the county to place that question on the ballot is relatively minor, about $5,000 of printing, because we will print in full text the bond ordinance that would implement the question if it's successful, as well as the question. And we're required also to send publicity pamphlets to every voting household within the county, and to call for pro and con statements later in the process. And so those will all be published as well. That's an estimated cost of about $70,000. The question, and if passed, the current law that's been amended requires the county to state that there will be a property tax increase if, in fact, the question is approved by the voters. And if that were a statement made just solely on this question, the average amount, and the statute requires that we actually state it for a house valued at $250,000. That would be $6.60 a year to retire the debt in 15 years. We estimate the average interest rate at about 3.4% of current market conditions. The average median house actually is about $147,000 in Pima County. So that's a tax impact of $2.90 per hundred. The issue is that in reality there won't be a tax increase, because until we issue more debt than we're retiring on an annual basis, the rates will continue to drop as we are needed to provide that debt service. We're retiring debt at about $50 million plus a year, and this would add $22 million, probably issued over a 2-year period. So the issue that is before the board today is really the resolution to call for the election, and it's been recommended by the Bond Advisory Committee unanimously, by the Board of Health unanimously, and by the Animal Care Advisory Committee unanimously.
Thank you. We have several speakers. Let's hear from the speakers first. Representative Victoria Steele.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Representative Victoria Steele, and I represent District 9 in Tucson, which is basically from Speedway up to the foothills. And I'm here today to talk to you about my support for your animal care center expansion and rebuilding. I'm really, really in favor of this. I strongly support this effort. I wanted to show you why. This is my baby. That's my baby. That's Monkey. He was my latest adoption from Pima Animal Care Shelter. And this is what I come home to after a rough week in the Phoenix capital. So what he is the third animal that I have adopted from Pima Animal Care Center. And he is a lovely, sweet little baby, and he's good therapy. And as I go around meeting people in my district, what I have found is just about everybody comes to the door, they've got an animal or two at their feet. We're all connected to these little souls. As a Native American, I truly believe that all living things have a spirit and that we are related. So this is my family, and I'm very supportive of your efforts to expand and replace the buildings. I think it's a worthy cause, and I will champion right along beside all of you. So thank you. Thank you for the time this morning.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Victoria.
Representative Ethan Moore.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members. My name is Ethan Ward. I represent District 9, Tucson. I appreciate the opportunity to give you. I just want to give you a very brief legislative update, and of course, express my support for the bonds as well. As Ramon can relate to, I was at the Senate Judiciary Committee very late last night. I had 2 bills pass the Senate Committee. Right now, I think we're going to have at least 5, hopefully 7 get to the governor's desk, 2 of which are of paramount importance to you because they're your bills. The one is basically changing the requirements that you do not have to hold an election for the sports authority. What we did, I worked with your lobbying team and your county manager, and we changed it, extending it to, I believe, 8 years, and the shall became a may. That is going before the Senate Commerce Committee on Wednesday. I believe I have the votes there and on the Senate, so that should be going to the governor's desk in a week or 2. The other one was at the request of you and the Sheriff's Department. Basically, as you know, when you negotiated the new retirement contracts, you, in order to keep the system solvent, you allowed the existing officers to keep their retirement, but the new officers had to not take the 3.5% bonus that you had, I believe, in 1996. That bill is passed the House. It is at the Senate Finance Committee tomorrow. Again, I expect it to pass, and I expect that to go to the governor's desk. So I think that is extremely important. Another bill that I think is important to all of us, one, we all care very much about the Tesla plant. I helped Senator Worsley get a bill out yesterday from the Energy Committee that could generate, if we use it right, $25 million in credits to help lure that plant if they use alternative energy. So that is important. Also, there's a company called Worldview that wants to do commercial space flight, 70 businesses or 70 employees right here in town. We have a commercial space flight that I have before the Senate Commerce Committee. Again, I expect it to pass and go to the governor's desk. That will not only save those 70 jobs, but open an entirely new market to us. There's a whole other number of bills that I'm running that I won't bore you with. One, though, that is important, I have a bill in the Senate right now that will increase funding from medical marijuana money for school resource officers. That bill may be in trouble, but what I've done is for the past year I've been working with the Department of Health Services, and we've allocated some funding that we can bring to the Sheriff's Department to help with the narcotics division. We've been talking to them, particularly their chief of narcotics, about funding, having the state fund 2 new positions to do that. Also very timely, and I will briefly go over it. We've been working very hard on the budget. The Senate budget informally was created or announced last week. It is probably going to pass out of the Senate. It's going to come to the floor either today or tomorrow. The House informal budget is, I'll say, vastly different. The Senate budget is quite austere. It is at lower levels of funding than the governor's budget. The House budget, I will say, has a lot of good things in it. The Speaker's been gracious. Everything I've asked for is in that budget. It includes PERF monies, transportation dollars. It includes additional funding from the University of Arizona, including the vegetable cooperative extension, $15 million. It includes additional money for Pima College. It includes additional money for long-term care, DDD, and of personal importance to me, the JTEDs. In fact, I'm in the House budget, the informal one that we're going to announce at some point. I have double of what I've asked for in terms of the Joint Technological Education District. So if we're able to hold to those lines, I think we'll have a budget that is better than what the governor's proposing, and I think one that will be much, much better and kinder to Pima County. What I really want to do is I want to thank all of you, because I count everyone up here on the dais as a friend. I want to thank you for the very open relationship we've had. I want to compliment staff because they've made me very aware of bad bills. One thing that I just remembered, the library bill, the secondary property tax assessment. What we did, your administration raised concerns about that, and so I worked behind the scenes with a bipartisan coalition, and we sat down with the sponsor, and he has decided not to bring that bill forward, so the bill, nothing's ever dead, you know that, but at this point the bill is temporarily dead. I really do see us working collaboratively. I see us working in partnership. The other thing that I'd like to do, speaking about the animal shelters, I want to thank Supervisor Carroll and Supervisor Bronson for the invitation to the opening of the tent. That was very exciting to be there. I've actually, as a result of that, promised my kids that they can adopt the pet once session's over from the shelter. You twisted my arm. And I of course support the building of that shelter. If there's anything that we can do, please let me know. I also, last note, if you'd ever like us to be on the agenda, I would like to have a very open dialogue about how we can best serve our constituents. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Mel.
I had a question for Mr. Orr regarding the Tesla plant. It was my understanding.
That's, Supervisor, you're out of order. We're on item 14 on the agenda.
Yes, Madam Chair and members of the board, well, if we could consider Mr. Orr's comments with respect to the matter of the legislative session to allocate those items to be a call for the audience, and we do not have a response.
Okay, because that was very confusing to me that we allowed him to speak on item 14 and talk about this. So.
My apologies. The Tesla plant was a bill that passed all of that.
Thank you, Representative Orr. Yes, and for the record, Representative Orr's comments regarding the legislative update were considered as call to the audience.
Madam Chair, may I ask Supervisor Orr to come up at the end of the call to the audience?
Representative Orr.
Representative Orr, I'm sorry.
I think he has to leave for...
Okay.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Members, I do need to be in Phoenix. I have meetings with constituents, but please call me. Always call me. I do like doing this together, and my phone line, so it's not my phone. My phone is always available to all of you, so thank you.
Even though I dig the James Brown and everything, please turn off your cell phones that way we don't bust out when Papa's got a brand new bag.
And I would welcome both Representative Orr and Representative Steele if you wish to be on the agenda at some point and discuss legislative matters. We'd be happy to do that. We have another speaker, Kathy Newman.
Thank you for allowing me to speak to today, our board, and Madam Secretary. My name is Kathy Newman. I'm a current volunteer at the Animal Care Center, and I live in District 5. I do want to put forth this thought for you to think about. There's not many, if any, bond issues that ever come forward that are a matter of life and death. And this one is. Because this determines the life or death of our homeless animals that have. I know I don't need to talk to this group about the importance of taking care of our homeless animals because you've given tremendous support to the animal community. And for that, we as volunteers and the community do thank you. Working down there every day, I get to see firsthand the overcrowdedness, the outdated facility. As you know, it was built back in the late 1950s or 60s when our population was about a third the size it is now. And even though we have this wonderful tent now that's working amazing, and our goal is to get 1 dog per kennel, 1 cat per kennel, we're still very overcrowded. I was just there last night and we still have 4 and 5 dogs per kennel, and they're struggling for food and fighting with each other, and it's very heartbreaking. Our goal now that we're reaching the 80% live release rate, that's going to happen. Our facility's continuing to fill up, which is great. We're saving more animals now than ever, but it's still overcrowded and we need more space to take care of these animals. We can't afford to keep putting this bond off year after year. As you know, once it gets approved, hopefully it does get approved, it's going to take several years to even get this facility built and functioning. So the sooner we act, the sooner we'll be able to continue to save lives. There are still 10,000 dogs and cats that are dying every year. We don't like to say it's due to space, but in actuality it is because they get hurt and they get sick living in this congested and outdated facility. So as someone that sees this firsthand,
every day I'm pleading to you to get this on the bond so that we can get it approved and save these animals' lives. And thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Mary Ann Parker.
Good morning. My name is Mariana Parker, and I'm a volunteer at Pima Animal Care Center. And I'm sure that several of you have seen me here before, asking on behalf of the animals at the care center to make the conditions better. And I thank you for doing that. There's a lot of wonderful changes happening at Pima Animal Care Center now. And I want to thank Mr. Newman for many of those changes. He's worked very, very hard on behalf of the animals. I'd also like to mention the new veterinarian. She's absolutely fantastic. There isn't anybody down there that doesn't love the lady. If a volunteer goes to her with an issue, she immediately takes care of it for an animal. I want you to know that. And it's thanks to the people that have made the changes that she's there. I also want to ask you to pass that bond issue. Please put it on the bond. I'm retired from Raytheon. They have a fantastic animal house club. Everybody out there wants to vote for it. And you know how many people are at Raytheon. I myself have 5 rescued dogs. 2 of them came from Pat. The last one came because I'm a volunteer, and she looked at me with her little eyes. I also received a picture from one of the volunteers that shows puppies laying on a veranda bed, and there had to be 8 or 9 puppies all cuddled up on that veranda bed. It needs more room. We need a new facility. Please put it on the bond. I know many people that would help you pass it. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no other speaker cards. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address us on this item? What's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Miller.
I had put out a press release on a couple of days ago regarding this special election, that I will support this special election, and we had very little information given to us until yesterday evening, and it is up to the voters to decide, and that's why I am supporting putting this on the ballot, because it's not my decision as the board. But as I looked through the cost breakdown that was given to us yesterday, late yesterday afternoon, my concern is the construction cost of the building is $11 million. And then by the end of it, you're adding in $3 million for consultants, which is 30% of the cost of the building. Permitting fees of $357,000. I don't know why we would be charging ourselves permitting fees, but maybe there's some for water meters or whatever. But by the time we're done, this facility comes to $506.40 a square foot, which is going to be very difficult for people to understand given our current fiscal situation. It gives me great pause when I look at the cost, and I know you've built in inflation and contingency fees, etc. But end of the day, that $22 million bond is going on the ballot. And I think that this cost breakdown, when people see it, is going to give them great pause, and it concerns me. I am a great supporter of the Pima Animal Control. I went down there personally and walked the dogs, and we spent the day out there, and I thought that you're doing a great job in a very poor facility, and it does need to be upgraded. I agree with that 100%. I'm just concerned about the extensive amount of costs that are affiliated with it. And that's something that I know that the voters are going to be looking at when they see this cost breakdown. And so that's my comments that I wanted to make this. I'm not without reservations on increasing the debt in Pima County, especially given the recent opinion by the Pima County attorney regarding how they can shift money from one district to another with a simple majority vote. That happened in my district just recently. $22 million is a significant amount of money. And as I said, it concerns me greatly in terms of the building itself is only $11 million. And I see this additional cost as being excessive. And I'd like to see less money spent, but My support for this agenda item, I will tell you, is not meant as an endorsement. It is simply to advocate that the broadest citizen voter base have the opportunity to decide whether or not they want to vote yea or nay for this animal care facility. And I believe it should move forward, but I'm just concerned after I saw this cost breakdown. And I hope that, people really evaluate this very closely before voting. And again, I will support putting this on the ballot. Thank you.
Madam Chair, is that a motion?
No, I think she just was voicing support. There's no motion on the floor.
Well,
at
I'd
this
love
point.
them to jump right in and make a motion.
Mr. Huckleberry has to be.
I'd like to hear Chuck's response.
Please, if it's germane, just on the points of the animal care section. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board. Yes, I sent the cost model out, and I think that everybody needs to be a little careful with the numbers because it's a 2009 cost model, and it's based on those costs that probably were reflective of 2008 construction costs. And so it's very likely that, and included in that cost model is $4 million of inflation, assuming that facility gets built somewhere in the 17-18 period. In addition to that, there's about $2 million of contingency within that. And so I think when I transmitted this material yesterday to the board, I also had a cautionary note. And that cautionary note is that if in fact this bond issue is successful, we will do as we normally do in building a major new facility, is do extensive research around the country with regard to animal care facilities and how they are adapting to the new models of the systems that are in place today, and that whatever the latest state-of-the-art facilities will be what will be constructed. And I'm fairly confident that it can be done within the $22 million. And so, again, we're going to build what is absolutely necessary, what meets the needs of that particular facility and the demand that's placed on it, and what is state-of-the-art with regard to animal care facilities throughout the country. And my guess is going to have a significantly larger, what I call, clinical environment than most have today.
Mr. Huckleberry, in regard to the facility itself and monies that are allocated for it, before any monies could be moved, it would still, we have a truth in bonding ordinance, and any monies would have, any recommendation to change would have to, there would be a number of public hearings, including before the bond committee, as well as the Board of Supervisors, so there is a process in place to assure that that money is spent for the purposes intended.
Madam Chair, yes, and that's why I, indicated one of our costs associated with advertising of $5,000 is we print the entire text of the truth in bonding ordinance that will be basically developed for this facility prior to the election as required by our code. And so there will be very discrete and descriptive analysis of what the monies are intended to do and facilities that will be built. And my guess is that was going to change between now and the summer as we zero in more on what the state-of-the-art facilities are within the country today. Obviously, we have not updated that since 2009, and my guess is that there have been changes since then. But any modifications would require that same process that we have to go through now, which is advertised public hearing before the Bond Advisory Committee, as well as the Board of Supervisors, and that process is the same one that was commented on by the Auditor General and in our recent audit that we went through about 2 years ago.
And then in regard to the, I'll recognize you in just a minute.
Sorry about that.
And then in regard to the consultants, the cost model we use is a standard cost model, and the permitting fees, these are all standard. There's nothing particularly noteworthy that I'm aware of.
Yes, Madam Chair, they're all standard models that are basically used by the industry, the architectural and the construction industry with regard to design, construction management fees, particularly building code fees that are required to be paid because, as you know, from years ago, in the Arena versus Pima County case, we were sued by the home building industry and had to create a enterprise fund. And that enterprise fund has to be reimbursed for its services, and one of the services is to review, approve, and issue building code permits for this facility. So to do otherwise opens the board back up to class action litigation.
Thank you. Supervisor Elias.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excuse me. First of all, I wanted to thank the Newmans for coming down, District 5 residents and members of the Animal Care Advisory Committee. For some reason, they didn't want to come out today. But I appreciate your work, and we also have Larry Hecker here, who's the chair of the Bond Advisory Committee. So obviously, there's a lot of interest in this, and I'm glad citizens and Representative Steele, my representative in State House, is here today too, and I appreciate her being here. I'm going to be at the LD9 meeting tonight, so that'll be fun and games. But I appreciate the comments that have been made here today, and I especially appreciate Mr. Huckleberry's response to Supervisor Miller's comments, because one of the most important things that we have to do here is to move to a new model of service that will involve less killing, be more humane, and put us into the modern age of animal care. And I think that's incredibly important to us. That should not be missed or set aside in this discussion at all. And it'll be very interesting to see the presentation from animal care that's coming up next year on the agenda, I know too, because I think we'll all start to develop a better understanding of what that's going to mean for all of us, for our friends in the animal world, our spirit friends, as Representative Steele reminds us. But I'd caution everybody to make sure that we move along in the right direction on this thing. Putting it on the ballot is the first step in all of that. And then adjusting our model to make sure that we have the right end result for Pima County and for all of us. It is very important that we do that. And just to put it in perspective, I'm not afraid to date myself here. I was born in 1958 when Eisenhower was still president, and I think we probably already had that building out there on Silver Bell, so you know. It's getting a little long in the tooth. It's time for it to go. I don't know that, I shouldn't say that, I guess, in front of my fellow members here. It might put an idea in their head. But anyways, I support the item and look forward to voting on it right now and keep moving forward.
And I want to apologize. I forgot, and my apologies indeed, to recognize a distinguished former colleague, former colleague Supervisor Dan Exton, for attending the meeting today. My apologies for not doing it sooner. Supervisor Carroll.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Madam Chair,
Supervisor Carroll, if I could just interject yes, for a second. I'm sorry about that, Dan. I thought you were one of the Boy Scouts back then. So Supervisor Carroll, please, sorry.
Thank you so much. I remember many times with Mr. Ekstrom at this board deciding on the improvements that we were making piecemeal to the Animal Care Center. And I know that Dan, along with many others, would have liked to have seen a complete rebuild of the animal care facilities. I'm certainly in that group. I want to go ahead and move then the special bond election for the purpose of improving and reconstructing the Pima Animal Care Center resolution number 2014-28, ordering and calling a special bond election to be held in and for Pima County, Arizona on November 4th, 2014.
Point of order, Madam Chair. Just a minute. We have a motion and a second. Supervisor.
I had requested to speak prior to Mr.
No, Mr. Carroll was next.
I was in the queue.
You had already spoken to Supervisor.
I called a question.
But question's been called. Roll call.
Supervisor Carroll.
Aye.
Supervisor Elias.
Aye.
Supervisor Miller.
Aye.
Supervisor Valadez.
Aye.
Chair Brunson.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to And are you folks going to stay? We've got another presentation coming up. We may take about a 5-minute break if you're going to be leaving right away with animal care. Are you guys staying or?
Please stay.
Stick around for a minute.
They're going to stick around. Okay. We'll move then on to item 11, Tucson Airport Authority presentation. I think Jack Penny from Sixa Consulting is going to address us on direct air service at Tucson International Airport. Jack?
Good morning, Madam Chairman and Supervisors. Larry, I'm Ed Biggers, and I'm currently serving as the chairman.
Yeah, you didn't look like that. You weren't Jack Penny,
I know, you got it right. And I'm currently serving as the chairman of the Board of Supervisors. And good morning.
Start over.
Got that right. And the airport's been undergoing a exercise for the past 2 years and on improving air service to Tucson. And we've enlisted the counsel and support of 6 local consultants, and they're going to present to us what they've been doing during this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Biggers.
Thank you.
Now you're Jack Penny.
I am Jack Penny, yes. And I'm not on the Board of Supervisors, but very happy to be here and be able to speak with you and the community as well. We've been in meetings over the last day and a half talking about the future of air service in the community. We really think it's critical to the economic development of this community. And we've put together a quick presentation. We will try not to take too much of your time, going through where we have been and where we are and where we want to be in the future. So we're going to talk quickly about the state of the airline industry. As you know, it's quite volatile, although it has stabilized over the last several years, and so we'll explain what's been going on with that. We'll talk about Tucson and its peer markets and how we compare. We'll talk about our top markets that we would like to see service added to, what the airlines are wanting to see, and the additional detail we need from our business community in order to help us recruit additional service. And then mitigating the risk for carriers, what we're doing to make it easier for carriers to launch service here. And then Bonnie Allen, the CEO and president of the airport, will wrap up when we go through this. So to begin, we'll talk about the state of the industry, and I want to talk about the price of jet fuel. This is a chart showing the price of jet fuel back to 1994. And this tells us basically everything we need to know about the volatility of the industry. It used to be that jet fuel was about 50 cents a gallon, and now it's $3 a gallon. So airlines have had to develop a new business model in order to be able to serve communities like Tucson profitably. And part of that business model is consolidation. If you see all the way to the left, in 1978, we had 18 big airlines that were serving the United States, and today we have 4. And so those 4 carriers have significant pricing power. They have significant power over what their networks look like. They are not chasing each other anymore. So when we had service added to New York City back in 2008 by JetBlue, and Continental chased them with service to Newark, those kind of things don't happen anymore. And these carriers are all now profitable, which is a big difference from how things used to be. But they control a significant amount of the capacity, and because of that, we've seen the amount of capacity decrease. This chart, if you see the light blue, and then we have that red box around it, that's where Tucson fits in. The average airport of our size has lost 26% of its airline seats since 2008. And that is a function of the cost of fuel going up and airlines retiring planes that burn more fuel. And so Tucson is not alone in losing airline seats. And so while we all may be frustrated that Tucson has lost seats and lost flights, it is an industry-wide and airport by airport. We've seen it happen everywhere across the country. So Tucson and its peer markets, this is probably the most important point that I want to make to you. And that is that we only retain 68% of the passengers that travel to and from the Tucson area. And the Tucson area is primarily Pima County. So only 68% of the people who fly in and out of this county use Tucson's airport. 30% use Phoenix and Phoenix Sky Harbor, and 1.5% use Mesa. There are a couple of notes on this. The number of people using Phoenix has increased by 5% over the last couple of years, And we are losing 2,000 passengers every day out of the community and another 2,000 passengers into the community every single day to flights at Phoenix. If we only retain the people in Pima County at Tucson's airport, we would be able to support 20 more departures a day. So that's just if everybody in Tucson used their local airport, instead of 65 departures a day, we would have 85. So that's how significant this problem is. Now, every time someone flies out of Phoenix, they're taking their money and spending it there instead of spending it here. We're losing tourism dollars, we're losing economic development dollars. Bonnie, the airport president, will tell you a little bit about the economic impact. What we're losing, we estimate over $1 billion a year in economic impact to Phoenix because of people using service at Phoenix. These are our peer markets, the markets based on the number of passengers that have about the same level of air service. And so you can see some of those communities like Burbank and Oklahoma City and El Paso and Richmond. These are airports of similar size. Of those peer markets, we have lost about 13% of our seats since 2009. The peer average is about 10%. So we have been disproportionately affected. A lot of that has to do with the economy here, but a lot of it also has to do with the economic situation of the carriers that serve Tucson. So if you look at the average fare, we actually stack up well there. Our average one-way domestic fare is $181, which is lower than our peers, and also our average fare has only gone up by 19% since 2009, while our peers have seen an average of a 24% fare increase. So it's not fares that are driving people to fly out of Phoenix. It is the breadth of nonstop service. And so how do we overcome that? We need more nonstop destinations here. That is clear. So we have a number of top target markets. These are our largest markets based on the number of passengers traveling to and from them. The number all the way to the right, the big number kind of in that purple color, that's the number of passengers per day that travel to and from these cities in each direction. So for example, to Washington, D.C., we have 228 people every day who fly there and another 228 who fly here on average. Now, Portland was our third largest market. And in November, Alaska Airlines launched nonstop service to Portland. It's been tremendously successful. In fact, Alaska has ended its marketing campaign in the Portland area because they simply don't have enough seats to sell. And so they're actually pushing passengers to seek out service on other carriers rather than them. And so I think we will see Alaska continue to grow that service. But it proves to us when we get a nonstop destination, people here support it. And so that's what we are working on. And it's very clear what our top two markets are for nonstop service. We need service to Washington, D.C., and we need service to New York. Those are our top two, and those are the two top priorities that we've been talking about over the last couple of days here. So this is what that map looks like. We are working hard, as you've seen, there have been a number of reports in the media on service to Sonora. We've met with 4 different carriers from Mexico within the last month, working on service to Hermosillo and Guaymas in particular. We're working on the East Coast service. We have Portland now launched. That was one of our top priorities. And we're working on service into Western Canada as well, and that's primarily to support the tourism industry here. We have tremendous visitorship from that part of North America, and we need to try and support that. Also working to get Albuquerque service reinstated. So those are our top priorities. So what do the airlines want to see? Well, beyond the data I've shown you, we're working to collect data from the major users of air service in the community. That would be the major businesses, also the government agencies. So the county would be among the users. And what we're looking for is collections of tickets from each user for the full year of 2013, so that we know where people are flying, what airlines they're using, how much they're spending, and we can do an analysis of how our businesses and our governmental agencies could better utilize local air service. So this can help us connect the users of the service more accurately to potential new service and airlines that they would like to see used. And we are developing a statistical picture for each organization of what their travel looks like and how they can better leverage their travel spend on new service. So this is the big key, and this is essentially, the reason we're here is to ask the county to help participate by working with us to develop this data. And then what we intend to do is develop a cost outline, like you see here from the University of Illinois, which commissioned us to do this project, of the usage of different airports and how much money is being wasted driving to Phoenix, parking at a higher cost, versus maybe paying a little bit more to fly out of Tucson. In many cases, the cost of the drive and the parking is more than the additional fare would be to fly here. And so in that, what we are looking at is mitigating the airline's risk. So the airlines have trouble forecasting markets like ours because so many of our passengers use a different airport and they don't account for that in their models. And new routes are a major investment. So Tucson to New York City, which is one of our top targets, $25,000 a segment is what it costs an airline to fly that route. So you think about that, that's $18 million a year an airline would be risking by serving that route once a day. And that's why large markets see more service. They're less risky, there's more passengers, there's higher fares. There's a bigger group of people to pull from where we have a small collection of passengers, a couple hundred a day, but we believe it can still be successful. So we have to change consumer behavior to ensure that they use that nonstop service. We have to break the frequent flyer habits that we have with many of our businesses. We have to develop corporate contracts, and there's only so much an airport can do. Under FAA regulations, an airport is only allowed to waive fees and provide marketing for a period of 2 years. That's all an airport can do to support air service. So any other support has to come from other entities within the community. And that's why business commitments to use the service are so key to making service successful. Again, what the airport does right now is landing fee waivers, terminal rent waivers, and marketing and advertising support, which is allowed by the FAA. They cannot provide a revenue guarantee. They cannot provide pre-purchase tickets or pre-purchase seats. They cannot develop an incentive targeting a specific airline, while other community organizations can. So businesses, government, and air service foundations have the flexibility to help us develop the support we need in order to bring this service to Tucson. So if we look at how a revenue guarantee works, and this is what we talked last night, we had a meeting with the TRIO Executive Council and talked to them about this because we really envision them being a central player in the development of service and getting private funding into a foundation that can be used to leverage service. And I think we need to think about this as economic development because every time a plane lands here, it's bringing people who are spending money to Tucson. And we estimate that impact for just a 50-seat regional jet flight at $4 million a year. So you can multiply that out as we continue to add service. It's a lot like giving an incentive to a large corporation to build a plant here, except it's a concept that's hard to, I guess, think about because the airplane can fly anywhere, but you get the exact same economic impact. And so with a guarantee from a foundation, if the service performs well, the money is never touched. If it performs poorly, the money is given to the airline to make up for the loss. But we really believe there is a market here, and this is the way to prove it. And so this is what Phoenix has already been doing. And so there's a group of businesses in Phoenix called Support Sky Harbor. They all have money to be a member of this foundation. And the foundation develops large guarantees up to several $1 million to bring service to Phoenix. And that's to a huge hub in a huge city. So they've been doing this for 10 years. And Tucson needs to work forward on a project that mirrors what Phoenix has been doing. If you look at Albuquerque, they just got new service to New York. Smaller community than ours. The community's governments and businesses put together a $5 million package to bring JetBlue service there. The service has performed exceptionally well. It's been 82% full over the last year. Lansing, Michigan spent $7.5 million improving its airport and is now a hub for Sun Country Airlines, operating to Mexico, operating throughout the United States, coast to coast. A number of communities work on similar projects. And so we see this as the future of air service for this community, and that's why we think it is so important. So Appreciate your time very much. Is it appropriate to have questions now for me, or would you like to?
We certainly can.
Madam Chair?
Supervisor Miller.
I had a couple of questions. You talked about the $18 million investment on the part of the airline to get a daily, that would be an annual cost for a daily flight to and from New York. I assume that is for a larger jet than an RJ.
Yes, that's a mainline Airbus or 737.
737 or something. We previously had JetBlue direct flights to New York here. Could you explain why that didn't work and why we lost them? Because I remember taking those flights and it was very convenient, but I now fly out of Phoenix for those very reasons.
Right.
And why did we lose them? What was it that we did? You said the airfare is not a factor. I in fact did pay a little more to fly out of Tucson because of the convenience. So why in fact did we lose them? And there was another direct flight, I believe it was US Air that was also pulled.
It was Continental.
Continental.
So what happened is JetBlue came into the community from New York Kennedy in 2007. The service started, it was successful, but it was a different world back then. Continental, protecting its hub at Newark, started service on top of JetBlue. As you can see, our market is about 205 people a day in each direction between here and New York. Not large enough to support 2 daily flights, large enough to support 1. So when the second flight started, it diluted the number of people on each aircraft and made both unprofitable. And as soon as JetBlue pulled out, then Continental pulled out as well.
So why did we court JetBlue to come in here, or did they just come in here on their own? And why did Continental pull out after JetBlue pulled out? Because then they would have again been profitable. I'm just trying to understand.
Right. And yes, the airport did recruit JetBlue. Continental came in on its own afterwards to protect its market share in the New York market. As soon as JetBlue was pushed out of the market, Continental had no reason to protect that market share and also left the market. And that's how this industry used to work when we had more carriers. They were a lot more competitive with each other. Now what we're seeing is as new routes get launched, Albuquerque on JetBlue, for example, they lost their New York service at the same time we did, but were able to get JetBlue back. No one else came over the top of JetBlue in Albuquerque.
So how do we prevent this? You said no one came in Albuquerque. How do we prevent this from happening again in Tucson?
I think that the industry has changed enough we won't see it happen. With only 4 major carriers, there aren't a lot of options for carriers to be fighting for market share. And we do not anticipate that once one starts service, another would start on top. That the competitive environment is just so different than it was before. Now, there is no way to prevent it because the airport is a public entity and has to take all comers.
They do.
Yes.
They are required to allow anyone that wants to come in and invest the money that they're allowed to do that. So we could potentially end up in that situation, but less likely than that.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions at this point?
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Carroll.
Sir, could you please explain to me, there's kind of a Lansing example that you gave earlier. It's where the government put money, bricks and mortar, into the airport versus what you're asking for today from businesses is just a subsidy or a cash injection annually. Tell us the differences.
Right, so Lansing,
why we wouldn't benefit from putting the airport authority in some type of bond versus
right. It's a great question. So the airport's facilities now are more than adequate to handle significantly more traffic than we have. So the airport facility does not need upgrades to handle more traffic. In Lansing, they invested in building a customs facility. Tucson already has one. Beyond that investment that the Port of Lansing made in the facility, community businesses through the Business Travel Trust invested a total of $1.5 million in revenue guarantees to bring Sun Country in. Additionally, the federal government gave Lansing a grant of $750,000 that was matched by the city of Lansing with $750,000. So the total package that would be similar to our package in that case was $3 million. That was on top of the $7.5 million investment in the facility. What we are asking for is not a continuing subsidy. All we are asking for in these meetings is data. We need the data to be able to connect the business interests we have in this community with the most important initiatives for air service to prioritize that map you saw. That's the main thing we're asking for now. In the future, after we share that with the carriers, if they say, we would like a mitigation of X number of dollars, then we will go back to the stakeholders in the community and work on a foundation or on a pre-purchase ticket program or on some kind of mitigation to get the route started to mitigate the risk in the beginning so that the service can be self-sustaining long-term. In fact, continuing subsidies are not allowed by the FAA.
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Mellon.
that just brought up one more question. How are you collecting this data? How are you able to capture that?
Well, there are a couple of different methods. Some businesses were really lucky and they use a central booking, either agency or system, and they can send us the ticket data. In some cases, we have to go through expense reports and pull out the ticket data from each expense report. And that's time consuming, but we've done it in the past and we can do it again. And what our intention is not to say, to go to a carrier and say, this business spends this much specifically on air services, to aggregate the data with all the businesses that travel to our targeted destinations and share that aggregate data with the carrier so that they can see beyond the overall market data, specifically who is going to get on the airplane.
Is that an issue, collecting that data? Are companies, large companies, fairly open with allowing you to go through expense reports? That's just a concern that would come to my mind.
It can be very difficult. It can be. Our company will be collecting it independently. We won't be sharing the data with anyone else. We can sign non-disclosure agreements. We have an agreement actually with Caesars Entertainment in Las Vegas. We collect their data. So it can, and you can imagine how proprietary that is. So it can be done, and we just encourage, we're also open to having the aggregate data sent to us, so we don't know ticket by ticket. We just know overall the company goes this many times to New York at this fare. So we would love as much detail as possible. We'll work with the company to ensure that the data is not shared in any way that would be a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Allen?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Board of Supervisors, we truly appreciate the opportunity to update you on this important economic development driver in our community. Tucson International Airport had a study done, commissioned through the Eller College of Business last year, $3.2 billion annually, supporting almost 35,000 jobs, direct and indirect. That doesn't include Ryan Airfield, just Tucson International Airport. We recognize the importance to economic development of the airport, whether it be to the business development initiatives that the Board of Supervisors is leading, or air service to support that, because air service helps recruit businesses, it helps recruit employees and talent, and it helps the tourism business. And we truly appreciate the importance of that. What we are doing, we have previously done air service development through staff. We have supplemented with Sixel Consulting, Jack you just heard from. We have the Air Service Incentive Program that the Tucson Airport Authority Board has approved, where we put up the marketing and the fee waivers that Jack talked about. We have had extensive meetings with airlines, both headquarters and at air service meetings where airports and airlines are matched to discuss the needs of the community and how it fits the route structure of an airline. We do that continuously, along with continuous data on this community. Anything positive that comes out in the newspaper or any kind of a report, we send it off to the airlines to show how the community is growing. We have been partnering with local employers, as Jack mentioned, trying to get data. It has been a limited success, which is one of the reasons we're here today. We have been partnering extensively with Visit Tucson on meetings and conventions. They have been extremely helpful. In fact, they were one of the key reasons going with us to visit Alaska, to get that Portland service, and then marketing Tucson in Portland to help it be successful. We have been working with what we call a business roundtable, which is resorts and the business community, trail, the chambers, meeting for the last couple of years, trying to get their input and their information on how to enhance their service. Surveys of the community, the passengers, the travelers. Mexico service is very important, Sonora. We have partnered with the Mexican governments, the mayors, Governor of Sonora, the consulate, the other airports in Mexico, trying to entice an airline to provide service between Sonora and Tucson. And we have been out marketing extensively to the community, trying to recapture those people driving up to Phoenix. What we are asking for, in the last 2 days, we've had extensive meetings throughout the community, and we've been asking, is air service important enough that this community will come together, the tourism community, the business community, the governments, work with us on a multi-phased program. That program, as Jack discussed, first of all, is getting hard data that we can then compile and do a feasibility study, identify the specific routes, do a feasibility study on that route, match it to the airline route schedule, and then put together a financial program and a financial plan that we can take to an airline and then come back to the community with. There are a number of ways that it can be done. The most reasonable is for companies who do extensive travel to use their existing travel budget and put it into a travel bank or purchase tickets or something. And the communities that have done that, the companies have actually saved money because they're buying in bulk at a lower fare and can draw upon it throughout the year as opposed to walk-up business fares. So there are different ways. Today, what we're asking of you is for your support and your assistance in collecting the data, which is the first step. If we can work with the county to get your aggregate travel data and ask you to encourage the businesses and tourism entities to work with us and provide their data so that we can do that feasibility study and match the routes and the airlines. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, and we found this very informative, and I'm sure that we will be cooperating in providing you that data. Mr. Huckleberry, do you have any comments?
Madam Chair, and members of the board, we will certainly provide that information, and I think that's probably within our power if we see we're getting leakage from our own travel to basically restrict that.
Thank you. That would be outstanding. Travel policies, as you mentioned, our businesses could make a big difference and could save a lot of money. If you look at the IRS rate, it's over $100 to pay on the IRS rate to drive. You add that to the plane ticket, the parking, and the time that you're paying your employees, that ticket can become very expensive, not less expensive. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. All right, that concludes item 11. We are now going to move into, or I'd entertain a motion to move into executive session.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second to move in exec. If there are no objections, we will convene in exec and return at the sound of the gavel.
Tell me, Helen. I called you. Didn't I just I know. Yes, Sorry, we can talk about, I don't want to talk about I don't know, I'm not moving the camera. I don't know. What? You'll have to, so that we can get lots of different angles.
That's good.
How do you zoom in on this thing? Oh, here we go. It's sometimes is, but the brain's still working at like time. Really? Yeah. And maybe it's still keep up with mind function.
Went on contract on 2:30. Here I
Okay, I gotta go find out if, I gotta go talk to Joe. I want a donut. Oh, there you are. I'm just gonna go talk to you. Do we leave this on? What if something happens?
Charge it.
We gotta charge it?
Yeah, mine's charged.
Oh, that's only 53 minutes? I thought we had 5 hours and 47 minutes.
No, that's how much recording time. That's how much space is on the...
5 hours.
Yeah, we have 5 hours of recording.
So we're good.
Of memory, excuse me.
Oh, okay.
We only have 50 minutes.
So am I recording right now, or should we...
I didn't know. Yeah.
Do you know what's the problem of being so close up here? I can't get the whole dais.
Right, exactly.
I'm too close.
Yeah. Even as far as...
I'll stand right where
Can we go get donuts once they go inside there?
Yeah, give them...
Okay, yeah.
Give them donuts.
Where's your bag?
My bag, right there.
Congratulations. I guess this is a good gig for you. But anyway, that's my new card. So call me if you ever need it.
Excuse me, Jared. I'm going to sneak past you.
They got him the ninja.
I will.
Okay, do you need my help with that?
No, I'm just.
Okay, I'm gonna pan the room.
How you doing, Gene? Oh, good to see you. Good to see you.
I know it looks round. Your husband was here meeting. Oh, that's true. You know what we were sitting around over this whole. Today that looks like Bob Patrick, but it's kind of out of place here, you know. Are you still have their shoulders and now you're not really? Oh, I know.
What do you call
I paid attention. Was the one I paid attention to. Well, I mean, it's something that there's been a lot of talk. Bringing businesses.
Pretty much yes. Is that one
I don't always do that. Mark, how are you, sir? Good to see you, my friend.
Don't tell him that he spent on something else point yet, because like he doesn't have another cause. But I'll be asking him.
Actually,
are you? I said she did. Oh, no, you're nice You got a moment, I want to ask you.
Oh, absolutely, sure.
Hi, Dan, how are you?
I didn't want to keep you waiting. It has, and I'll tell you where we've been. We started about a year ago when remember said, "You're not doing a good job for animal services." So we got together 4 people, animal care from the Humane Society, actually the Community Foundation, because there's a lot of others, and frequently in the end of life, their pets, all they have, and so that there's money and resources, and we brought in 2 people, not just business owners. Those 4 became a group called Pima Alliance Welfare, so whatever. So Humane Society and Animal Care have been linked in the end. And then we approached them back and said, "We're going to $9 million capital. We're going to go on $22 million and it just didn't work right now for them because I thought we could do a joint facility that had sort of a common area, the Animal Care one side, Humane Society and others, and everybody somebody else. We're not going there yet, but what I've been looking at is maybe we find a strip vacant spot out on the east side where nobody is. Get a PetSmart or somebody from our funds, a joint facility, and the Humane Society and Animal Care can get together. because you know how these groups are. The other one thinks they know them, and we know how to do it. Well, I believe if we're all there working together for a while, we're going to see we're on the same page, and then the next step will be easier. So that's a very long answer to yes. Once a month when they have the animal advocacy meeting, there are a couple people from the Humane Society and the head of animal advocacy.
I volunteer.
Oh, okay.
The other 2 days I'm at Habitat for Humanity.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, yeah, yeah.
And it's like, they need a new facility. They're doing this fundraising and everything else. Talking about the main here.
Well, don't push it if you need to.
No, I don't want that. I need my job or very disappointed.
If I can be real candid with you, I was not a fan. Feedback came back to me. The board said they didn't want to sully their reputation by looking at animal care. Sully their reputation by looking at animal care. Now, I will tell you, animal care reputation has been very good, so I appreciate it. When I started working on this, I said if you went out to the community and the Humane Society would be wonderful people to take care of animals, it would be the perception, and animal care is the steal your dog. So we have a long way to go to get these. I don't necessarily disagree with that. So I was with the Humane Society, I was disappointed because I really thought we would have the exciting opportunity to take the land, the building, the capital campaigns, we'll take $22 million with you. One of my concerns was I don't want to step on their capital campaign by going out with this bond collection. So I think we're making real progress. The people, folks at the Humane Society are stepping in a lot. It might just be something to
on, and if there are things that, you know, you think would be beneficial for me to say and do.
Okay, so that would be great. Thank you.
I'm really not violent like I feel.
I said, I'm not afraid talking to you.
Introduce myself, welcome her, say, you've been here a few times, you have any stuff
Right, that's right.
Well, I'm not really involved in the day-to-day activities. And I thought, you know, I understand that. Put it that way, like, you have no idea for anybody working out there. You don't even say no to the congregation. They let this place go in addition to the prisoners.
If we didn't have DOC, I don't know how we'd keep things clean.
If not for me, I do it because I really know that most of the people there, if they really want to put it
Well, and you know how these things go, I think. It's the staff's fine. You heard reference to our new doctor. We got into that. We started from the Humane Society. So at the staff levels, everybody gets involved. Because I think everybody cares about it. And then when you start getting in the higher tiers, then the politics get involved.
I'm so interested to hear your presentation, but I'm making.
Bond, we got our bond collection.
I took that.
Okay, so yeah, just the rest of it. Bye, talk to you.
Okay.
But I think we're getting there. You know, you can't, as you know, you can't change your pictures and change it. It's taken us a long time to change animal philosophy. So when we get up to a certain place,
you really care about the animal before you go and get involved in your pocket.
That's right. Yeah. So I think we're getting there. We're getting there. But thank you for asking. And why are they? Now we've been talking about it, and we hope we can start doing it. So my two rescue cats are from the Humane Society, which but I got them before I was here. So. But they're all integrated. I think if you ask most people whether you know there's the Humane Society, there's animal care, as long as we're taking care of it. Same.
Oh, yes, I'm just waiting, That's why. So I haven't been able to. I am. So you have on your cell phone. And I think it was.
And I'm not so familiar with that, and we need to have greater discussion about that. I was at a meeting yesterday where someone said, you really need to understand this more and why. I mean, if there's people who are not safe, there's more and more people, as you know, coming to libraries for all sorts of services. We had an incident where people are regulating more people than 7 or 8 times. It's a little. They might need some help, but that's not 750.
Police officers, in addition to what they're going to pay.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So who is these officers?
It's part of the library budget. The library budget. But I just don't know how those are connected. Do you have an email or something? I'll get you some information. But I know, I'm not, I just.
When they do
Yeah, oh yeah, but no, it's all ours.
Except that in the case of the county, deputy sheriff that oversees off-duty and security people which are working.
Like this way, I don't know, and I'm happy to look into it and give you some more information if that's helpful. So give me your. I want your email. Well, you write it.
Okay.
I'll just tear off the corner if that's okay. And then I'll get more information and get it to you.
I have other things that I want to bring up there,
Oh, but good.
but I do away with that one for the moment.
Yeah, yeah, I'm looking into it. And that's what you're
See, I was
Thank you. I think I was aiming for just solid white. It looks like. Yep. I'll be in touch. Thank you.
Actually, I didn't know. Well, that happened. That happened.
Oh, absolutely. Whenever you want to
Nowhere here we got. I started going.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, you are.
I'm here for good. I was born and raised here. Hey, Dad. Hey, Rick. Sure. Hey, Rick. Nice to meet you. This is so old. I got it at the thrift store. You know, made in West Germany. Western Germany. It's gotta be Germany. 25 years old. It's a nice watch. Oh, yeah.
I need it.
Can you help me? Yeah. Okay, so does this mean we only have 15 minutes left? 5-0?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll keep an eye on that then. Okay.
I would just keep it over here. I get people from that side.
You sure? Okay.
And then you just
Session, we have several executive session items. Council.
Madam Chair, members of the board, 7 items in executive session. Starting on the regular agenda, item number 6. This is a proposed settlement of administrative claim number 2013-01811 filed by Tucson Electric Power Company for the reimbursement of certain utility relocation costs incurred as a result of the county's McGee 2 road improvement project. The proposed settlement identifies the TEP facilities that were determined by Pima County Department of Transportation staff to qualify for the prior rights exemption for utility relocations and provides the total amount of relocation costs subject to reimbursement by Pima County. That amount is $347,958. The Director of the Pima County Department of Transportation and the Pima County Attorney's Office recommend approval of the settlement agreement and the reimbursement of the relocation costs addressed in the agreement.
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Elias.
move approval of the county attorney's recommendation.
Motion and a second to approve. Are there any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 7, Councilman.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, executive session item number 7 on the regular agenda concerns the adoption of the County Employee Health Plan. This item is for information only. This will be addressed later in on the agenda.
Thank you.
Turning then to, Madam Chair, members of the board, turning then to the addendum agenda, we have a number of tax settlements and another proposal in the Dos Picos matter. Beginning with item number 1 on the addendum agenda, this is a proposed settlement in 333 West Rackman LLC versus Pima County. This is Arizona Tax Court case number TX 2012-000722. This concerns, plaintiff's challenge to the valuation of a 2-story motel located on 2 parcels of land between Oracle and Main and Stone Avenue for that's the subject property for tax years 2012 and tax year 2013. For tax year 2012, the proposed settlement would reduce the fair cash value and the full cash value, and the limited value from the current assessed values. The agreed upon values for tax year 2012 shall statutorily roll over to tax year 2013. Based upon the non-payment of taxes by the current owner of 2013 taxes, the plaintiff has agreed to voluntarily dismiss its complaint and appeal for tax year 2013. Under the proposed settlement, the legal classification and assessment ratio will remain the same. The approximate tax decrease for tax year 2012 will be $55,335.51, excluding potential rounding errors. As part of the settlement, both sides agree to bear their own costs of attorney's fees and litigation expenses. The County Assessor's Office and the County Attorney's Office recommend the settlement.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Elias.
move county attorney's and county assessor's recommendation.
Motion and a second to approve. Objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, executive session item 2 on the addendum agenda, is proposed settlement in the matter of Atrium Finance 4 versus Pima County, Arizona Tax Court case number TX 2011-549. This tax appeal concerns plaintiff's challenge to the valuation of real property and improvements located at 4550 South Palo Verde Road. There are 4 contiguous parcels that comprise the subject property, which is currently operated as the 300-room Holiday Inn Palo Verde. The proposed settlement would reduce the full cash value of the subject property, inclusive of all 4 properties and parcels and improvements thereon, from its current assessed value for tax year 2012 of $11,959,908 to $7,224,000, which value shall roll over to 2013. The total tax difference for the subject property for the 2 years in question is approximately $103,775.56, excluding potential rounding errors. The legal classification and assessment ratio under the settlement will remain the same. As part of the settlement, both sides agree to bear their own costs of attorney's fees and their litigation expenses. Both the assessor and the county attorney recommended this settlement.
Madam Chair?
Supervisor Lees.
Council, could you repeat all those numbers 3 times quickly? I'm not even sure you did it once, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and move the county attorney and the county assessor's recommendations.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 3.
Item 3, Madam Chair, members of the board, concerns a proposed settlement in the matter of CWPS Corporation versus Pima County. This is tax court case number ST 2013-464. This tax appeal filed under the small tax appeal procedures concerns plaintiff's challenge to the valuation of a car wash located at 730 East Broadway Boulevard. That's at the south corner of South Euclid Avenue and East Broadway Boulevard. The proposed settlement would reduce the full cash value of the subject parcel from its current assessed values for tax years 2013 and 14. This value will not roll over to 2015. The legal classification and assessment ratios will remain the same for 2 years. The total tax refund for tax year 2013 will be approximately $10,311.12, and the tax difference for 2014 will be approximately $8,635.45 for tax year 2014. These figures do not take into account the potential for rounding errors. As part of the settlement, both sides agree to bear their own costs of attorney's fees and litigation expenses, and the assessor and the county attorney recommended the proposed settlement.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair, I'll move the county attorney and county assessor's recommendation.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the county attorney and assessor's recommendation. Objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 4.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, executive session item 4 on the addendum agenda concerns Dos Picos LLC versus Pima County, Maricopa County Superior Court case number CD 2010-98366. In this case, Dos Picos alleges it's entitled to compensation or declaratory relief based on the county's designation of level 1 peaks and ridges in ordinance number 2005-63. Dos Picos has made a settlement offer to Pima County that would require the county to remove the level 1 designation from the property and allow Dos Picos to apply for an award of attorney's fees to the court, whose ruling on the matter would not be appealable. The county administrator and the county attorney do not recommend accepting this settlement offer.
What's the pleasure of the board? Supervisor Elias.
I want to move that we reject the settlement offer.
Second.
Motion and a second to reject. Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 5.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, the last item we have for consideration today is executive session item number 5 on the addendum agenda. And this is a proposed settlement in Oracle Crossings Owners Association versus Pima County. Tax Court consolidated case numbers TX 2010-815, 2011-526, 2012-727, and TX 2013-307. These cases involve the plaintiff's challenge to the valuation of approximately 9 acres of common area land within the Oracle Crossings Shopping Center. which is located on the west side of Oracle Road and south of E Road. This is for tax years 2011 through 2014. The proposed settlement would reduce the cash value of the subject property from its current assessed value for tax years 2011 through 14. The settlement value for tax year 2013 will not roll over to tax year 2014. The legal classification and assessment ratios will remain the same. The resulting rounded tax decreases are approximately $25,300 for tax year 2011, $28,990 for 2012, $24,660 for tax year 2013, and based upon 2013 tax rates, $23,380 for tax year 2014. As part of the settlement, both sides agree to bear their own costs of attorney's fees and litigation expenses. Pima County Assessor's Office and the County Attorney's Office recommend this proposed settlement.
It's pleasure of the board.
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Elias.
will the county attorney and county assessor's recommendations? Oh, yeah, excuse me, I said it first.
That was the second, Supervisor Kerr. There's a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to the regular agenda. Item A, call to the public for consent items only. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address us on items on the consent calendar only? If not, what's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Miller.
I'd like to pull consent item 19 for separate vote.
Third, is that in the form of a motion?
I move to pull consent item 19 for separate vote.
Is there a second? Motion and a second. Supervisor Miller, item 19.
I move to deny item 19, condemnation resolution number 2014-345.
Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. What's the pleasure of the board on this item?
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Elias was first. Supervisor Elias.
I'll move consent as amended.
What about item 19?
Do we have to vote on that separately?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's right, that was Supervisor Miller's motion. Then I move that we approve item 19 first.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item 19. Objections?
Yes, I object.
One objection from Supervisor Miller. Any other objections? Hearing none, motion carries 4-1.
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Elias.
I'll move the remainder of consent as amended.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the remainder of consent as amended. Objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to the regular agenda, boards, commissions, and/or committees. Item 10, Pima County Animal Care Advisory Committee, presentation of a report. Which one do you do? Okay, come on up.
Madam Chair, Supervisors, thank you for allowing me to present this second report that TAC has given in the history of the advisory committee. I'd like to start off by thanking you for the bond vote that you just had a few moments ago. It's very important. And as a result of that, we will be moving hopefully in the direction of the facility portion of it. Let me go over a few accomplishments that have occurred just since the last time we spoke, or since the last time I was here. The center so far has hit an all-time high of 82% live release rate in November. Overall, over the last 6 months, has been 75%. Now, I'm not going to go through every single thing I sent you in this report. I want to just do some of the highlights. That, of course, is one of them. So the live release rate is up to about 75% from where it was a couple years ago, which is about 50% is where it was. So there's a lot of good things that are happening to make that happen. And I'm going to go over a few of those right now. Due to the funding that you all approved, the tent is now up and running, and there's about 35 kennels, and some of you were there to see its opening. This is assisting and allowing some of the things as far as the individual dogs being able to have their individual kennels, and thus, as a result of that, be able to eat and get medication and things like that, and actually be adopted out. Hopefully within the next few weeks, the rest of the, I think it's going to be up 96 total kennels will be in place. There has been additional funding by you all as well, and just in this last period of time to address some of the staffing shortfalls. And as a result, we have a new shelter manager. That's the individuals just handling the shelter itself. We have the new veterinarian, which you heard someone speak of that as well. We have a development coordinator now, which will be putting to try and get outside fund sources to assist us as far as funding things at PAC. And so she's on board now. And we have about 7 more shelter technicians that help with actually taking care of the animals, both the cats as well as the dogs. The center, since this last time, as you all know, has contracted out with Pima Paws for Life, which has taken the sick bay dogs that we had that were cramped into 16 kennels, and there was anywhere between 2 and 4 in about a 4x4 space. And last time we spoke, I mentioned that they were getting in fights, they were dying and things like that. Well, now these dogs have their own individual kennels at Pima Paws for Life, and that's the contract that we took out with them. And now these dogs are actually getting better. Some of them are coming back, some of them are actually being adopted from out there since they've taken that upon themselves to try and not even have to send the dogs back. So the dogs are going out, they're getting better, and some are coming back to be adopted, like I said, and others that they're doing. So it's a really good program, and they're doing a very good job at it. The center right now has grown to over 800 volunteers. Now, I'm not saying that all 800 show up at PAC all the time, otherwise we wouldn't need much staffing. But there's probably a core of about 50, 60, 70 people that come constantly. And some of the goals would be to get the rest of those people coming more often, so that would be helpful on the adoptions, which I'll touch
Are
base.
involved in your development piece. They don't want to, they could help with development.
Exactly. There's so much that they can do. As volunteers, most of us didn't just fall off the turnip truck yesterday, so we know a little bit about stuff, and we can help in a lot of different ways, whether it's even paperwork or showing how to do organizations and stuff like that. There's a lot of people that want to help in many ways other than walking the dogs. The members of the committee are still part of the Pima Alliance Welfare Group to improve the welfare throughout the community. At the request of the committee, though, one of the big important things is that we were looking at a staffing analysis to see how Tucson, or at least Pima County, sat in accordance with all the other cities. So, not all of them, but some of the other comparable cities in the Southwest. There was what I call, in the way I've learned, is a comparative analysis that was done, and it has given us some insight as to where we stood with our money and how big our facility is and how it's being spent. It should really show, that we have 2 to 3 times the amount of resources that are being requested of us, and about 1/3 the cost being put into it compared to whether it be San Diego, Phoenix, and places like that. So with that, the leadership in Pima County, Mr. Huckleberry and staff, has looked at, that's why you're seeing some of these positions that were put in over here. And although that doesn't necessarily address the entire needs, but you really can't staff the entire facility with everybody that you would actually need. You don't have the room to do that. So even if you wanted to staff accordingly, like somebody like us, bring ourselves up to those staffing levels, you really wouldn't be able to do so effectively. So that's why the bond and things like that are helpful, and the tent to get us to the point gives us a number. We have been requested, though, as the committee, to look at a number of other things that have to do with revenue as well. Fees for requested euthanasia, review cost allocations and fee increases and things such as that. And we are doing that. And we'll be reporting that out to you all as far as what it is that we think where we can end up making and getting some extra money for that. And I'll touch base on that on our upcoming goals. PAC has continued its tradition of the dog walking that we started about a year ago. And over the course of the last 4 holidays, which ranged from Thanksgiving to MLK Day, we had about 900 participants at least that showed up. We had to turn away 200 to 300 people that wanted to come walk dogs. What that does for us, it increases our donations, it increases people wanting to participate and knowing what's going on there, that it is getting better, but we need to be doing other things to make it get even better. Supervisor Miller saw that there are areas that we can improve on that, and she showed up with a number of dog walkers as well. So Some of the issues that we're presently working on right now that are in the works and will be about ready to come out, so I'll just touch base on those. There's like a voice of employee survey, which will give the employees the ability to tell us what it is that they see right there at PAC, what it is that they would like to see. How are they being supervised? What do they think their goals are? Do they have enough training? Things like that. An alarm system to signal for help during dog fights. That'll reduce our liability if whether it be volunteers or whether it be people from the public coming in and a dog gets loose or any type of attacks. We need to be able to know if something like that is going on. And these are not things that are going to be very expensive, but it allows us to mitigate those type of situations. Veterinary holds to include medications and schedules, so we know that when a dog is put on a veterinary hold, they're not on the veterinary hold for a year or something like that, so we know what's happening with that dog or cat. The review of the euthanasia procedures and review of the processes and criteria for the rescue. Like, for example, some dogs were being called rescue because they didn't like cats. So some of that stuff needed to be changed and looked at. Some dogs don't like cats, that doesn't make them a rescue. If cats don't like birds, that doesn't make them a rescue. So those little things are being reviewed so that the dogs can be adopted. And that leads me now to the upcoming projects. And you see a number of them that I have listed here, but one of the things that I wanted to stress the most that we need to look at is, for example, our licensing. When veterinarians now give rabies shots, they give them the rabies shots and they give them the piece of paper to have the licensing. But there isn't that third copy that's sent into Pima County anymore. So we have 110,000 licensed dogs in Pima County out of about 200, almost 250,000 dogs and cats. That doesn't even include cats because we don't license the cats. So here's opportunities. If we're not, a lot of people that get that third copy don't send it in and don't license their dogs because no one's going to check on them. And so now you have 150,000 people that possibly can just say, well, I got my dog vaccinated, I'm not going to get a license. No one's going to check on me anyway. So there's lots of ways to get that without us incurring even additional fees and having people work on that by subcontracting it or things like that. I have people that want to make, out of that $15, if they want to make 5 out of the 15, we get the 10. Stuff like that, but we could end up getting that extra 150,000 licenses. And that's not even looking at cats, because that's under discussion as well. But one of the biggest points that the committee is looking at now is that you all are really taking care of the shelter aspects with the things you're doing. And one of the things that we need to be doing from PAC ourselves is look at, I see it, and we all see it as a 3-part system. Intake, shelter, outgoing. The shelter part is working now with the vet and then of course the space and things like that. How do we reduce the intake? Because it's like that song, Hotel California. We don't want the dogs, they're not going to live there. We want them to come through and out and leave to good homes. So, the intake, how do we do that? We have staffing for outreach. We want to hone where it is they're going to reduce the amount of people that are bringing their dogs there or getting them spayed or whatever it may be. The second leg, the third leg, which would be the adoptions, we have 3 staff members over at PAC right now that are dedicated to outgoing, whether it be rescue or adoptions. Hone those areas as well, because if we don't, and I know we can, the shelter will continue to expand. So, how do we do that? Adoption counselors, for example, which just comes to mind. The adoption counselors, we don't have the staffing there for the amount of people that come in. And so those are opportunities that are lost. When you have 150 to 200 people showing up at PAC, and we adopt out 15 to 20 dogs, clearly when those people are leaving because they're not being helped, we've lost opportunities. And it's like any business, they would look at that and say, are we kidding? Are we going to allow 100 and 150 people to walk out the door unhelped? Because we're not just going to give them the dogs anyway, so you can't say 150 dogs would be adopted, but a percentage of those 150 people would be adopting dogs. That saves us money, because for every dog that we have, dog and cat, that is kept at the shelter on an everyday basis is costing us a lot more money as well. So that is an area that we want to hone in on, at least from the committee's perspective, and start looking at how do we get more volunteers to be doing that, recruiting, beg, borrow, stealing, whatever it is we need to do to get the adoption counselors there to help us keep the place empty. Looking at other things such as reducing the eliminating redemption fees for first-time instances, what happens is oftentimes people come and it's $150 or something along those lines to redeem your dog if your dog got out of the gate. Well, oftentimes they don't have the money for something like that, so they'll just forget it. We're not going to redeem the dog stays with us. We're looking at things like the very first time possibly having that reduced, or even maybe having nothing if we get to spay and neuter that dog before it ever leaves. So then that person comes, gets their dog, it leaves pack, it leaves spayed and neutered as well. So we don't see it back again, and we don't see neuter. So there's a lot of things that we can do to help ourselves. Now, some of the things that we've asked you to be involved in, which of course was the bond, which I had on here, continuing the spay and neuter, which is just part. That's the incoming leg, right? The three-part leg. The less we have dogs and cats coming in, the less we spend overall at the facility. So the more we spay and neuter, particularly, and possibly target zones of Tucson, or zones of Pima County, where we're getting the most dogs, where we can then target the spay and neuter towards them, so that we don't get so many dogs from those areas. With that, once again, I'd like to thank you for the bond proposals, and thank you for all the assistance that you all are giving us. So far, we have not had almost anything that we've been turned down on. We've been pretty reasonable in the things we've been asking for as well. But we continue to hope that in the future we'll be able to get PAC, as well as ourselves, better and better and better as far as the staffing, as far as the supervision, as far as everything that we need to go. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, very good presentation.
Yeah, it's pretty good when they get a round of applause, huh? It happens around here all the time.
We can do it again. All right, let's move on to the agenda. And I want to actually, 800 volunteers, we need to use their energies, find some way to harness it. So thank you all for coming today very much. Moving on to item 12 on the regular agenda. Oh, you were just saying, okay. Moving on to item 12 on the regular agenda, Crisis Response Center operator change, and item 13, quarterly report on collections. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move both items.
Motion and a second to approve items 12 and 13. Are there any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to item 15 and 16. These are medical insurance for county employees and Pima County self-insurance employee medical benefits plan. These are similar items. We have several people who want to speak on those items. James Owen?
That's me, I was just comment only on mine.
You're only, oh, you did. Sorry, so every once in a while I should actually read them. Thank you. Then let's move on to Brian Johnson.
Good morning, Chairperson Bronson and members of the board. My name is Brian Johnson, and I live at 7025 North Boswell Lane in beautiful Picture Rocks. I'd like to applaud the board, first of all, for its investment in wellness and healthy lifestyle aspects of the health insurance benefit that you do provide your employees. Personally, I've benefited from, and not just from the premium discounts or other token rewards, but for being 50 pounds lighter, and more importantly, for the first time in 10 years, I am prescription drug-free. The psychological and emotional benefits of being healthy are really a reward itself. But achieving this has not been easy. The hardest part was not just the time invested, but reworking my financial priorities to afford being healthy. Those blood pressure medications that I used to take actually didn't cost me anything on the health insurance. But eating healthy is expensive, and the monthly memberships to LA Fitness are an added household expense. My salary here at the county is approximately about 15% above the county's median wage, and we have no children at home. So if living a truly healthy lifestyle is a challenge for me, I can imagine how difficult it is for employees with families who are making a wage at the median or below, and how frustrating it must be to want to live healthy and not be able to afford it. Increasing our health insurance premium is counterproductive to promoting participation in our healthy lifestyle program for those who are struggling financially to begin with. What we need is a wage increase, especially for those at the lower pay scales, so we can all afford to reevaluate our lifestyle choices. As a society, we're beginning to recognize that poor health, especially childhood obesity and diabetes as a result of economic status. Recently, I became involved with the Grow to Be Fit Foundation and had attended the opening of that state-of-the-art health and wellness education facility at Apollo Middle School. And despite its financial and political problems, Sunnyside School District is showing leadership in the community by building this facility to educate not only children, but also their families. Let's see if that kind of leadership can be found here in the county. You will achieve greater results investing in people. That's what leadership is. Programs like 3 Simple Steps to Wellness are good, they're fine, but a living healthy wage would be infinitely more effective. Thank you.
Thank you. Maya Castillo.
My name is Maya Castillo, President of SEIU Arizona Local 48. Chairperson Bronson, members of the board. While SEIU is a strong supporter and has been a great cheerleader of the transition to self-insurance, and we do believe that it saves employees and taxpayers money, and it does give us greater control over our health insurance, we are opposed to the 5% increase. As a member of the Health Insurance Benefits Wellness Advisory Committee, also known as HIBWAC, I do understand the financial realities of implementing self-insurance and that there are bumps in the road. And I do greatly applaud all of the efforts of human resources staff in implementing this new program. But in a time where employees have only taken baby steps forward, we just don't have the money in our paychecks to withstand another increase. A 5% increase, health insurance increase, mandatory ASRS increase, and no large or at least public conversation of wage increases really means that employees will take home less this year and leave employees unable to meet basic needs, much less invest in our county. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our speakers. What's the pleasure of the board on item 15?
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Carroll.
I'd like to move the staff recommendation on the items 15, 1 through 5 for the fiscal year 2014-15.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve. Discussion. I'm going to just make a comment. I will support it, but I think Ms. Castillo and Brian, we've got to balance some things here, and I hope as we move forward in the budget, if we move forward with this increase, that there is some compensatory increase in wages, especially at the lower end of the scale. The economy may have come back for those at the top, but those that are at the median or below the median haven't seen any significant increase in wages in over 6 years. So I would hope that the budget recognizes this fact. Any other comments?
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Supervisor Elias.
Thank you. Yeah, I have to concur with you that I'm willing to support this item at this particular juncture. but I think that goes along with a very serious conversation about how we hold our employees as harmless as we can from this increase in cost. Do we need to make sure that we have proper reserves in order to function as a self-insured business, if you will? We do. There's no doubt about it. But we also have to take a look at those employees, especially those employees who are down at the lower end of the wage scale. And the 3% that they got last year, I gotta tell you, we have a lot of people who earn $10 an hour. And those people who earn $10 an hour got a 3% raise on $10. That's significantly different than everybody who works on the 10th floor. So, with that said, I think this is an ongoing conversation that needs to be had, and please continue with your attention to this item, because I think we need to have a broader public discussion about those increases for salaries.
Any further comments, discussion? If not, are there any objections to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 16. Pima County Self-Insurance.
Madam Chair, I'm going to go ahead and move that item.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Discussion? Objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to item 17, Information Technology Policies. What's the pleasure of the board on item
I'm
17?
going to move items 17 and 18, Madam Chair.
Second for items 17 and 18, and 17A and B, and 18, Selection and Contracting Medical and Health-related Professional Services Policy. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. We're now at hearings, franchises, license permits, items 19 through 21. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address us in opposition to items 19 through 21? If not, what's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Elise.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearings on items 19 through 21 and transportation items 20 through 27. Approving items 19, 20, and 21, and approving items 22 through 27, including traffic resolutions 2014-29 through 34. Excuse me.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve items 19 through 21 under franchises, license and permits, and under transportation, items 22 through 27, including resolutions 29 through 34. Are there any objections? And close public hearing. Are there any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. We're now on the addendum agenda.
Madam Chair,
Supervisor.
I'm going to go ahead and move Flood Control District Board item number 6, contract. Excuse me, Pima County Flood Control District and Arizona Department of Transportation.
There's a motion and a second to approve item 6 under Board of Supervisors sitting as Flood Control District Board. Are there any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. We move to item 7, Election Integrity Commission. The chair of the commission had asked that I put this item on the agenda for discussion. We have several speakers. Christopher Cole.
Madam Chair, I asked this
You-
be after the chairman of the EIC.
Oh, okay. Tom Ryan.
Thank you. I'm Tom Ryan. I'm the chair of the Election Integrity Commission for the county. And we have sent you a letter making a particular request to provide a waiver of the requirement to have an EAC certification number. I'll try to explain a little bit what all this means. As you know, Pima County is in the process of writing an RFP for new central count election equipment. Not new precinct machines, not new assistive devices, just central count tabulation equipment. And We are concerned about the unnecessary limitations that might be put on the vendors who would be able to bid on that job. Right now, we have statutes in the state of Arizona that have certain requirements that all vendors and all equipment must subscribe to. And we also have a procedures manual written by the Secretary of State's office that translates those laws into operational procedures. And in that procedures manual is a requirement that does not appear in state law. And the requirement specifically is a certification number by the Election Assistance Commission, a federal commission. Okay, so that's a requirement that's in the Secretary of State's manual. It does not appear in statute. In order to get an EAC certification, you have to submit a whole system, central count tabulation, precinct machines, and everything. If you don't have the whole system, you don't get through the door. However, vendors who are qualified can go through a testing agency and have their system tested in exactly the same way that any other vendor would. So Pima County does not need anything but central count equipment, but any vendor who is just offering that equipment currently without the waiver cannot bid on that job. So the question is, if we have the rule that's in place now, we have vendors who will bid on the job. We also have vendors who cannot bid on the job. If we have a waiver in that rule, we have the potential for additional vendors who can bid on this job, and we believe this is important. To put it in context, and to wrap up, there are only 10 states that require federal certification by the Election Assistance Commission. Only 10 out of 50. There are another 15 states that require testing by a federally accredited laboratory. And Arizona falls into that category, except that with the addition of the Secretary of State's Procedures Manual, we fall into the strictest category. There are another 9 states that do not require, or they require testing to federal standards, and 16 more that require no testing to federal standards at all. So there are 40 out of 50 states in the union that do not require an EAC certification number. It is not required by Arizona law, and the Election Integrity Commission voted unanimously to send you a memo asking the Secretary of State for a waiver on that extra requirement. So we hope you will go forward with that request to the Secretary of State. So thank you.
Thank you. Bill Beer.
Still good morning. Chairman Bronson, members of the board. I just wanted to reiterate all of that Tom Ryan has said. I serve on the commission as well. I'm Supervisor Miller's appointee to the commission. I would like to point out 2 simple things about, to reiterate what Tom said. One of them is that it was the unanimous recommendation of your Election Integrity Commission. All of the members of the commission, from the Libertarian Party representative right on through to the Green Party representative, all of your appointees to the commission, Mr. Huckleberry's appointee to the commission, have made this request of you as the board. The Pima County Election Integrity Commission has a set of bylaws, and I just want to read you one statement from it. The function and purpose of the Election Integrity Commission is chartered as an advisory group reporting to the Pima County Board of Supervisors. The purpose is to help improve the conduct of elections by examining the systems and processes behind them in order to improve functioning of and public trust in the Pima County electoral process. And I think the public trust is something that needs to be remembered and re-emphasized every time we talk about elections in this county. I saw Mr. Huckleberry's response to the commission's letter, and I just want to emphasize the fact that unless we keep in mind that it is the trust of the public in the election systems that you as the Board of Supervisors are responsible for, all of the things that happen in government, that authority is based upon that trust. And if we don't have that trust in the public, all of this comes crumbling down. We are asking, as the commission, that you simply ask the Secretary of State to waive something that is not required in state statute. It is not required in the federal Help America Vote Act. Please accept our recommendation and ask that the Secretary of State waive that requirement from the Election Procedures Manual. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cole?
Good morning. I'm Christopher Cole. I reside at 4357 East Pima Street here in Tucson. I am the Libertarian Party representative on the EIC. And just to emphasize something that was just mentioned, the Libertarians and the Greens agree on something. It's pretty damn important. Pima County is sitting on a time bomb. Yeah. But Pima County is sitting on a time bomb. The equipment that we have, the Central County equipment, I asked Mr. Nelson at our last EIC meeting, and he said it should last to the end of the year. As should. It may easily be that the general election in November, we have to go to hand count because the equipment has failed and cannot be repaired. Whether or not that will happen, what the odds are that will happen, I can't say. But we need the new equipment. If the waiver is not granted, we may end up having to reject all of the vendors because they don't meet our needs. And then we have to go to the Secretary of State and say, please, please, waive this. And we run out of time. And if we run out of time, if there is a problem with the election, Pima County is going to be responsible. And a lawsuit could be filed if anybody's election is close. We may have to hold the election again. And that's going to be expensive. That's going to be a lot more expensive than saying to the Secretary of State, take this waiver, please. It is the best aspect of crisis management to avoid a crisis. That's what the EIC is asking the Board of Supervisors to avoid a crisis. Thank you.
That concludes our speakers. Staff, any comments or first any questions from board members at this point? Mr. Huckleberry or Ms. Wheeler?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Nelson? Supervisor Elias?
Madam Chair, I'm going to move that we go ahead and send this letter to the Secretary of State. I think that the Election Integrity Committee, acting in complete agreement, indicates to us that we might as well send that letter. I don't think it'll hurt anything. I don't think it'll hurt the procurement process. And we'll find out what the answer is to that question. I understand Mr. Huckleberry's concern and concerns outlined in his memo, but and quite honestly, they're real too, and we should continue on the pathway of safety. But I don't think this interferes in any of that, sending this letter. I think it's a smart thing to do, and we'll look forward to the response and move forward from there.
Second. There's a motion and a second to approve. I guess I have one question of staff and maybe Mr. Ryan. If the Secretary of State denies the waiver, what are the next steps?
Well, if the Secretary of State...
No, you need to come forward and identify yourself again, sir. Please, thank you.
Yes, Tom Ryan, Chair of the Election Integrity Commission. Madam Chair, if the Secretary of State denies our request, there really is nothing else we can do. We go forward with the RFP and we get the responses we do. And unfortunately, we may be have a shorter field, smaller field of vendors than we would otherwise.
Okay. Thank you. All right, is there any further discussion? All right, there is a motion and a second on the floor. Are there any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to item 8, Pima County Public Art Portfolio. Items 8A and B, what's pleasure of the board? Supervisor Carroll.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. I'd like to move to County Administrator on the addendum agenda, item 8, Pima County Art Portfolio, staff recommendations listed, A and B, as well as number 9, the Youth Leadership Conference, a recommendation of $12,500 from the contingency fund for the Youth Leadership Conference of 2014.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion?
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Miller.
On item 8, I would just like to note that I agree with Mr. Huckleberry's original assessment that each individual department should be responsible for the infrastructure where the art is located. So I will not be supporting item 8. And on item 9, we are already overrun. This 2014 Youth Leadership Conference, whether you like it or not, Mr. Carroll, I have the data here. We are, with this $12,500 added to that, we will be overrun on our Board of Supervisors contingency fund for the year. We still have until June 30th. And I don't believe we should be approving these funds for this use because we are out of money. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Object, Supervisor Carroll.
Madam Chair, I just want to note that United Latin American Citizens has put on this Youth Leadership Conference for the last 25 years. We've supported it for many of the years that I've been on the board. It's certainly not a personal choice. This is a choice that the board has made over the years. And thank you very much. I intend on attending. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Objections?
I object on item 8 and I object on item 9.
If there are no further objections, motion carries. Moving on to item 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. What's pleasure? Supervisor.
I'll go ahead and move those items.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve items 10 through 17. Discussion? Objections? Hearing none, motion carries. That brings us to the conclusion of the addendum agenda. We do have several speakers and call to the public. Tracy Gomez.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Tracy Gomez, and I live at 8119 South Sunny Place, and I work for the Health Department as a community nutrition specialist, and I've been with the county for about 28 years. As SEIU prepared for Meet and Confer this year, we asked employees to share with us some of the highlights of their job, as well as any challenges that they were facing. Employees shared example after example of awards they've won, projects they've led, and times their hard work was recognized. We collected stories of very dedicated, talented workforce here in Pima County. A workforce this county can be proud of and should work to retain. We found employees are still struggling to keep up with the growing cost of living, like many in our community, especially those making the least. I would like to share with you one particular example from Parks and Rec employee here at Pima County. He wrote, recently a woman called to reserve a ramada near the playground at McDonald Park for her son's birthday. When she called, she expressed concerns that the trees were hanging low in the sandbox. The week before that birthday party, I heard the trees cleaned and removed old tape and glue from tables, removed weeds and rocks from sandboxes, and filled holes. The following week, the woman brought in a thank you card to personally thank us for our work and tell us how happy she was with her experience with Pima County Parks Department. To me, it was just the work we do every day, going the extra mile to make sure people who use our parks are happy. when we asked what challenges he faced during his job, he also told us, paying for gas has been a real issue for me. Working across town, living paycheck to paycheck, I have to collect change and save cans to turn in just to earn extra money for gas to get to work. We see this across the county. Hardworking employees who are good at their jobs and love the work they do, but who are just keeping their heads above water. As the board considers the new county budget, we ask Pima County to lead by example in providing strong living wage jobs to our community, and especially consider those earning the least. I think you will agree when workers struggle, our local economy struggles. A $1 raise would go a long way for employees. If we do nothing this year, we see employees fall further behind. Mr. Huckleberry is already recommending a 5% increase in health insurance. Retirement is set to increase again. And cost of gas and food and life continues to outpace wages. We're asking the board to prioritize their commitment to a strong workforce and to afford Pima County employees the dignity to provide for our families in a way that reflects our commitment to quality public services. Our employees really need a $1 raise. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Dorson?
Yep. Sorry.
Supervisor Miller, since you refused to meet with me as an individual, I want to share this with the public. And I'm proud to say that I am against all waste in government. However, I think it should be pointed out that in your message to the public, to your constituents, you talk about wasting money on continuing to fight against the Rosemont mine. I just wonder how you would feel if that mine was being built in your backyard in the Catalina Mountains. I would do everything in my power over the rest of my life to stop any damage to those mountains, and you should do the same thing. You mentioned spending $185 million in regard to University Medical Center South Campus. You really need to get your figures straightened out, understand how that money is being allotted, what money is being spent, and what money is being returned to the county for that money is being used there, and also realize the importance of that facility to all the residents of the county. In addition, you talk about millions of dollars per year in support of dozens of nonprofits, including $75,000 to Literacy Connects, $34,000 to Catholic Community Services, and $22,500 to Humane Borders. I don't think that money is being wasted at all. You also mentioned the total debt of Pima County, and I think you need to learn about your facts and figures on that also. The amount that the county has in debt compared to counties of the rest of the state is totally wrong. And in addition there, the last thing I want to mention, and I really could go over this whole message that you've got, is we talk about the loop, which is the bike system along the various riverbeds around town, and you're complaining about the cost of that. You say that these trails are important for erosion controls, but connecting the bike routes adds $1 million to the cost. I actually think that this is one of the most important things that we can be doing for our community, to have this bike path, walking, jogging path for all the community, and the fact that it's going to go around the whole circumference of the city is really an amazing feat, and it should be enjoyed by everyone here. The idea that you're going and throwing out that the roads need to be looked at, of course the roads need to be looked at, but the bike path has nothing to do with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry Ottoboni?
Madam Chairman and Board of Supervisors, my name is Jerry Ottoboni and I live in Oro Valley. It seems like many voters are feeling like ostriches who bury their heads in the sand and flap their little fluffy wings. But thanks to Supervisor Miller, she has shined a light and helped to get our heads out of the sand, so when Jim Nitzel of the Tucson Weekly writes a huge article about a Pima County supervisor, I find it interesting since many of us know his tactics. When I call the squirrel in the corner or the little man behind the wall of the Wizard of Oz, it immediately sends up a flare and a red flag to me. He is using a diversionary tactic to take my attention away from what's really going on with the Board of Supervisors. For example, I heard that Oro Valley and Marana are trying to annex parts of Pima County. So why wait, or why would Pima County want to fix the roads? Just wait and let the cities fix them. Perhaps people should send their bills for their car damage to Pima County. Which would be cheaper to fix, the roads or pay the taxpayer bills? Another scenario is a $1.5 million to Trio. Many may not know that the president, Joe Snell, receives a $350,000 a year salary, which is almost like what we, the taxpayer of Pima County, is paying his salary. What is that all about? All the cities surrounding Pima County have canceled Trio. What companies shall come here with our bad roads, and Pima County already has has a wonderful paid employee to do economic development. Another scenario is the $5 million that we, the taxpayer, may have to pay Martin Willett, the #2 guy who was supposed, under Mr. Huckleberry, who was supposed to maintain the roads and hurt himself on the bad roads. Many people have told me they believe this is a conflict of interest to have the Board of Supervisors decide how much millions of dollars that we, the taxpayers, should pay. These roads have been bad for years. Obviously, they were not a priority in Miss Day's day, since they went from bad to worse under her watch. 70% of the worst roads in the county, with the district paying the most. I guess most people didn't realize Supervisor Allie Miller inherited Ann Day's legacy of bad roads. After all, the Miss Go Along to Get Along couldn't get her friends on the board. Our supervisor should help her fix the roads. Thank you.
Maya Castillo.
I'm back. My name is Maya Castillo, President SEIU, Arizona Local 48. I would like to thank the board for their support of the Youth Leadership Conference. I was able to attend a couple of times during my teenage years, and it really was a pretty transformative experience that I will remember forever. Switching gears, the pay increase and longevity bonus that we saw this fiscal year was much appreciated and highly needed, but with costs continuing to rise and increased deductions, some employees saw their paychecks shrink, and some saw very small increases in take-home pay, as little as a quarter of a pay period. And let's face it, 50 cents a month isn't really going to help very much when bills are due. Those at the bottom of our pay scales were affected the least, and everyone pays the same for a gallon of gas or a loaf of bread. As you continue this year's budget process, I really urge you to consider our county's budget as a moral document. It shows a commitment to taxpayers to spend money wisely, a commitment to quality service, and should show a prioritization of people, the working poor, working families, children, and the elderly. A budget that leaves employees behind doesn't encourage spending, and more importantly, cannot agree with our obligations, our various faith convictions, or our moral convictions. As he left office in January 1961, President Eisenhower, a Republican, said that we pray that peoples of all faiths, all races, all nations may have their great human needs satisfied, that those now denied opportunities shall come to enjoy it to the full, that all who yearn for freedom may experience its spiritual blessings, that those who have freedom will understand also its heavy responsibilities, that all who are insensitive to the needs of others will learn charity, that the scourges of poverty, disease, and ignorance will be made to disappear from the earth, and that in the goodness of time, all peoples will come to live together in a peace guaranteed by the binding force of mutual respect and love. SEIU Arizona supports $1 an hour pay increase. $1 an hour for Pima County employees means most to those who make the least, and helps employees pay child care costs or for the gas that it takes to get to work. It helps buy that loaf of bread. We need a buck, Chuck. Thank you.
It used to be $2 at Trader Joe's. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address us at this point? If not, then this meeting stands adjourned.
I got mine right here. You're on camera. There's your booth.
Well, sales taxes and taxes are maybe doesn't show up as a separate item.
And so it is ignored, and as I said, it's and let's
Depends on how it's going. Very long, that's the kind of
Hey, Roxanne, how are you?
Thank you. See you next. Well, no, you don't have to.